I have teaching in me from the time I was born, because my grandfather was a teacher and my great-grandfather was a teacher, and I always wanted to teach more than perform from India. So when I came here in '89, the first thing I did was to ask my husband if I can open a school here, because I always loved to teach from my young age. So I performed less and I taught more. So I think it runs in my blood. So that's what made me teach in this country.
When I first came to the US, I came as a student of dance and I was full of it. I wanted to perform, and soon I realized that to be able to perform, you need to take one more step, that is teach, because while teaching you learn more, and it just happened. It's not like I planned to teach. I never learned how to teach. I was a student. I was carefree. I never planned on studying the dance form in its depth to continue it or pass it on. I learned it for myself. So when I came here, the best way to keep up with it and not forget what I've learned, I thought teaching was the best thing.
I always wanted to teach dance, and I always wanted to have a dance school. That was my goal ever since I was a little girl. It just happened to be that I was in the US. That's where I got married and I came and settled, and so it was just natural for me to start teaching dance in the US. Bharatanatyam, which is deeply rooted in Hinduism, and we perform songs in praises of different gods and goddesses, and we usually use abhinaya or sancharis depicting the various tales associated with them. So unless these children have a background in that, it is very challenging for them to actually understand what that it is that they are supposed to portray and to portray it effectively.
I have to answer this question in three different stages that I went through when I came to this country. When I came in '89, I was very much into Indian dancing, mythology, philosophy, and I was very orthodox. So when I came and when I opened my school in Virginia Beach in '80s, I was really shocked to see that the students did not know anything about our Indian culture, because the first generation Indians who came here wanted their kids to grow up to blend in with the mainstream. Then second stage, when I opened my school in North Carolina, I had seen lot of difference. Kids in '90s learned a little bit more about Indian culture. So I had a very better time teaching, or a easier time teaching to those kids, because if I asked them any stories about Ramayana or Mahabharata, at least they would know what Ramayana and Mahabharata were. And then I could start from there and go on beyond what they knew, and whatever they did not know, I would tell them, and it would be easy for them to grasp because they knew the basics. Then finally in 2000, when I started teaching in Washington DC, I saw a big change where everybody, all the kids, knew so much of Indian culture, and it made my work much more easier than North Carolina. So that I just had to explain the story of the song that I taught, or they knew what they were learning to begin with, and then they would ask me questions. Even today they ask me questions, a lot of questions, and I see that they want to learn about Indian culture, opposed to '80s when they did not want to know anything about India but American culture. They were so westernized. Now I'm so glad that they are all realizing their roots are in India and they want to know more about Indian culture. So it's making my job much, much easier these days.
Every time I come to teach them a piece, I give them a scenario, and then there's a storytelling, a time of interaction, and then we pick it up from there, and then I always encourage questions. And when I first began, I was lost so many times, but I soon learned that It's okay to tell the students that you don't know, and you'll come back with the information. And the comfort began. It was a journey of teaching.
I did teach in India, but I was extremely young when I started teaching. I was only 15, and I taught for about 6 years. I had my own school, small school with about 30-35 students, and we did several performances. And I also taught at my institution where I learned Kala Mandalam. I taught group lessons there, several group lessons. So the experience of my teaching dance in India was colored not just by the way I was taught dance. When I learned dance, we had a set way that our teachers taught us. We would not ask them any questions. We would basically imbibe whatever it is that they shared with us. So to a large extent, my teaching style in India was also colored by that. So my students did not have the chance or opportunity to ask me any questions or question me. And also I was very young. So my experience as a dance teacher was also, I would say, completely at the a tender shoot level and not like a tree level. The whole shift came in my perception of how I should teach dance when I went to the UK in 1990. I was sent there as a resident dance teacher performer from Kalamandalam. When I took my first step in the UK soil and went to my first lesson, I realized that the way I taught dance back in India is completely different, and that's not going to work here because the children there were children who were born and brought up in that country, and they are actually used to and taught to question things. So I had to answer their questions, and to do that first I had to bring a shift in my own mentality that no, they are allowed to ask me questions, and as a teacher I should answer them. And so that was a completely mind-blowing experience. So in the US, I brought all these experiences that I gained from just my 1 year in the United Kingdom, and that is how I teach them now. I actually make them understand what it is that they are portraying, that they have to know the words, they have to know the meaning, they have to know the song, and they have to know the talam before they can actually say that, okay, I know the dance.